record on this. There we go. Well, good morning. This is the Diesel Drivability Roundtable for 2026. We haven't done one in a while. I've been actually before the holiday, I was pretty busy with a lot going on, a lot of training, also working on some trucks myself. I've been doing that when the training is not there. But a lot of things going on in social media, huh? So some of you guys could probably have seen what's going on. Um, God, I could tell you, I've been restraining myself to continue on my YouTube channel, which is the Diesel Talk with Tony Sells, to talk about some things. But I've had my, my things that I got going on. Obviously, as a training provider, I'm always having the intention of making sure that I actually keep the information up to date and also address issues. So obviously, for 2026, the topics, well, what are we going to talk about? Well, we got emission-related issues continue to be a frustration. And boy, are they a frustration. Right now, I'm trying to work with a shop and with a 3-liter Duramax where we have, high mileage issues. So I heard that Matthew also has one. I think, Matthew, I believe you posted one on the actual forums themselves too as well. And we've had issues there going on. But we have to get a grasp on everything that these trucks are notorious for. So let's get one thing clear. Software sucks. Okay, software definitely sucks for the simple reason that, these softwares don't make sense. I will be talking about, and Matthew, you can kick in yours here in a little bit, but I will talk about the 3-liter Duramax, which is setting on P11cc, P0421 now with cat efficiency. The shop is really frustrated. They're trying to address the issue. But let me tell you, we're running into some serious questions on what's going on here because this code takes a while for it to set. So that means you got to be driving it pretty good to actually get this, this thing to act up and to set. So not only are we dealing with the code itself, addressing the code, but also getting the code to see if it actually does set. So we have to, establish a few things here going on. So the big thing obviously is, with these emission related issues is that now a lot of you are dealing with high mileage trucks. And in this case, you're talking about 250,000 plus miles on it. And you're trying to get rid of this efficiency code, this P027FD code, the too bad code. In other words, everything that's related to either A, NOx conversion efficiency, or B, we're dealing with DPF, in other words, heavy soot accumulation. So, but the problem is when I'm dealing with shops, some shops have not done their due diligence. And what I mean by that is they're still not understanding the complete operation of how, NOx conversion takes place with the use of DEF fluid and also the pre-NOx. In other words, when we're dealing with, especially with the GM products, with NOx efficiency before the after treatment. And then you're dealing with Fords when it comes to those that have issues with, again, God, there's an array of them that we've dealt with. But again, we're dealing with a bunch of issues. So for those of you that don't know, let me first make one thing clear is, one thing is to have the understanding that, we have everything of, I guess what we're trying to say is in other words, what's going on with the engine, what's going on with all the other subsystems. Because as you look at diagnostic trouble codes, they're going to tell you to verify, do you have any other related codes, such as a MAP code, such as a barrel code, or a DPF efficiency code, or a CAT efficiency code. Do you have that? Because you cannot have proper NOx conversion if you don't have, again, everything else that you're supposed to have, such as, again, a proper running engine, no other DTC set that are related to, other subsystems that can affect NOx efficiency. So obviously that's all part of a class that I teach, but it's something that you need to find out and figure out. And by the way, those of you that are watching this recorded, please note, I do have a 5-part series on after treatment that's free, for Christ's sake. It's all free on my YouTube channel, where I talk about, the basics and the operation of, again, the after treatment system. So, but is your answer to the issue just to delete, right? A lot of guys are just deleting. And let's get one thing clear. We'll have some of you chime in on this later on. But, is deletes legal? No, they're not legal at this time yet. So therefore, the EPA is still busting shops. It's still doing what they're doing, even though I know what's going on with the current administration. All I'm saying is you can't be deleting trucks. But then I've done classes, these last 4 months of classes. I kind of took a survey on asking people, hey, is, deleting always the answer? And the problem is the tuner quality, right? Tuner quality is a question. Not to mention the issues with deletes, how compatible is with that product. And when you look at like a 2024 Ford F-350, for example, that's fully loaded. I mean, you're talking about other subsystems that can be compromised. So the question is that does that tuner play well with the actual PCM, in other words, with the current software that you're running? So guys are complaining to me, yeah, the guy put this tuner in. The problem is now we have half of the other things that don't work, such as other convenient features, air conditioning, radio, and so on. So therefore, the other issues with deletes is smoking. We got smoking issues. In other words, you got a lot of soot coming out of there because they're running higher horsepower. And in this case, yeah, you're getting higher horsepower. The problem is it's smoking. And it's funny when you go down the road, you see a deleted truck and the whole rear right of that trailer, the exhaust or the trailer that's towing behind, actually just full of soot. Again, your fuel efficiency goes to the hell in reality. So, and we have talked about in the past about getting more horsepower out of an engine requires, again, fueling, requires more boost, right? And timing too as well. But, how was that tuner affecting the transmission shift quality and other subsystems that, can be there? So I guess I'll take a vote later on, or if you want to put it on the chat, you can ask. And that is, have we seen issues with deletes, bottom line? Because I've taken surveys, like I said before, and that survey was, hey, has deletes really proven to lengthen the life of the motor? Some people will say yes, some people will say no. So the bottom line,
yeah, all right, no problem.
Hold on, we got somebody's mic on. So let me mute all. I just muted everybody there, sorry. But anyways, the point I'm trying to make is the fact that deletes are not, it depends whose delete program that's there. And not to mention, if the truck's fairly new, what's going on with the warranty. So dealerships are obviously, many dealerships are avoiding warranty if you actually do delete. So moving on. So NOx issues or NOx sensors have been an issue, and some sensors have been known to be skewed. I mean, bottom line is skewed. We were dealing with another 3-liter Duramax. This is not the one I'm going to talk about, but we were dealing with another one. And another one was we could not get that NOx conversion code to go away. And turns out that there was another 3-liter that came in, swapped the NOx sensors, and next thing you know, it fixed the problem. So the issue is that we're trying to figure out what is going on to figure out how do we have a skewed NOx sensor. Everybody has their their testing that they did. If you remember, quite a few months back, we had the instructor there from CAT talk about how they do it. We've had another lady that actually did a presentation on that too as well, where we're blocking off the plate or blocking off the DEF fluid injector, so we can test to see if the NOx sensor 1, NOx sensor 2 are both reading about the same, right? And there are other tests that are out that the manufacturers are giving us. Again, that has not always proven to be concise, which has now left a bunch of us with the point that, hey, I'm just going to put a NOx sensor in it, or I'm going to carry some NOx sensors and stop. But before we start talking more about this, hold your thought. I know I saw you there, Matthew. Hold your thought there. Let me take you over to the service info. I get it why we're going there. So with this 3-liter that I'm having issues with, you should be seeing my service information there. And the code that we're having problems with is P11CC, which is, as you can see on your screen, NOx sensor 1 performance signal low. Okay. The question begs the fact that, okay, when we're talking about signal low, is it saying that, obviously it's a performance code, which I've addressed before. And in this case, it's saying that, are we converting a lot of NOx? So therefore, in this case, we can assume that there is an adequate NOx conversion, okay? So when we look at the code itself, obviously there's, and again, I'm on genuine GM service information for the 3-liter diesel here. And in this case, we're addressing the 2 major components, which is the reductant control module and obviously the NOx sensors themselves. Why? As you can see, the sensor delivers signals for wideband lambda, digital lambda, and again, all because of NOx concentrations. And they work similar to wideband O2 sensors. Obviously, I don't have time to talk about that. It'll be a class subject, but it talks about how the sensors consist of 2 measuring cells, Obviously, we want to separate the oxygen from the NOx so we can actually get a NOx reading itself, and that's what we're reading in the actual sensor itself. But the thing that we got to keep in mind on this 11cc is, and that's why I wanted to cover this real quick, is what is necessary for this code. Again, what should not be there? In other words, what do we mean to make sure is working? Obviously, you shouldn't have a P262B, UO29D, not set. There should be no codes related to all these different sensors. And actually, oops, sorry, it's moving up and down. But in this case, we're talking about from the ambient air temperature sensor to vehicle speed sensor to the fuel injector, all these listed, right? And it also states that no other TTCs related to the concerned component are set. Obviously, those of you that live in cold weather, this is an issue, but for us, this is not an issue here in Las Vegas, meaning that the ambient air temperature is warmer than -4 degrees, barometric pressure, obviously from 10.2 to 17.4 PSI. Engine coolant temperature has been 1, where again, we're supposed to be between 158 and 248. That's a biggie, which I've seen with L5Ps too as well. Then engine speed must be between 1,000 to 2,000 RPM. These are things that guys are not, I know some of you guys are sharp. I know those of you that attend are sharp, but the problem is some of the guys aren't doing the reading. And in this case, your RPM, that's a big one right there. It should be between 1,000 to 2,000 RPM. Obviously, ignition voltage must be greater than 11 volts and map sensor less than 36.2. Obviously, a boost. Obviously, we're talking about boost there. No other DTCs related concern component are set. And obviously, NOx sensor 1 heater mode is allowed. And then we got something that I've been complaining about in the past is, did we verify the correct source voltage that feeds the NOx sensor? Okay, so therefore that's important. So as I continue talking about this, please remember, we're having an EGT issue with this truck too. So it's saying that the truck is not actually heating enough, even though the technician ran a regen and we could clearly see in the PID data, we were achieving over 1,200 degrees. Okay, so that's not an issue, but it's setting a code for that, and it's been reflashed. So now it begs the question, should we be verifying the AGT sensor signal voltage? Okay, we need to look at that. Not to mention for the actual NOx sensor module itself, we need to verify, are we getting battery voltage? And for those of you that are new to this, please note, where is the NOx sensor module located at? It is located where? It's located somewhere underneath that carriage or underneath the, the chassis, and that means it's exposed to all the elements. Well, anyways, to conclude, let me just scroll down to all the test procedures here. As I scroll down, obviously it says action taken when the code sets, blah, 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 right? Conditions for clearing the code, right? These are type A codes. So they fail once, boom, that sets the code. It's not a type B. But as I get down to the diagnostic steps, it kind of made me laugh because number 1 says ignition on, vehicle on in service mode. Verify there are no TTCs. We already confirmed that earlier, and you could see that. Obviously, if there is a code related to any of these, you're supposed to go fix that, okay? Now, step 3, verify the following conditions do not exist. Induction system leaking. Obviously, you're gonna do a smoke test. Hopefully, a lot of you are doing smoke testing nowadays. You have your smoke tester, they're cheap now. You're gonna find intake leaks, right? And then you got your exhaust system turbocharger leaking, which can leak a little smoke. Those of you who've done this, and they're still okay. And then finally, it says operate the vehicle within the conditions of running the code, which we told you about the RPM, the temperatures, and so on. And then they said if the code does not set, you're good. But if it does set, what do they want you to do? Is NOx sensor, which a lot of you have done. I get it. And did it fix the problem? And the answer is no. But let's give the code chart a little bit of credit. Did you verify everything here? So therefore, the code charts are not exactly, shall I say, telling you everything. What do I mean by telling you everything? Let me go back to my presentation here. So by talking about this, obviously, oh, I got company here. I got dogs here, sorry. But anyways, the thing is, as you're looking at this, right, you obviously got to look at the bigger picture. For example, we got to understand what causes NOx conversion. Like we said already, no engine issues, injector issues, low compression, blow-by intake leaks, temperature warm, right? We talked about the pre-temps, right? Precise amount of DEF fluid injected. So don't take for granted the DEF fluid either. Is the DEF fluid okay? Is it actually, again, in other words, certified? Are you using your test strips? Are you using, your refractometer? What are you doing? So therefore, and don't be like some shops I've been to. Do you have a dedicated graduated cylinder or measuring cup that measures precisely the amount of DEF fluid that's supposed to come? And then comes the biggie, the NOx catalyst itself. So as you know, there is a NOx catalyst. So there is, again, DEF fluid being injected. And next thing you know, you got what? You got a NOx catalyst that actually completes the NOx conversion, again, from nitrogen to carbon dioxide and water and so on, oxygen. So let's talk about that for a second with ammonia slip. When we talk about ammonia slip, we're talking about, again, excess ammonia that can actually be permeated in the NOx catalyst. Here's an example. When I was in Oregon, I was working on an L5P, and then this L5P would not actually release the D rate. So it was threatening to go to idle. It was already speed limited at 50 miles an hour. What I want to show here, let me mute the sound here, is that I decided to run the reductant fluid quality test, or the later models are called anti-tamper, sorry. And what you're doing there when you're running this test that you can do on GMs and Rams is that you're telling the computer, go ahead and test yourself, go ahead and inject the DEF fluid, and let's see if we have the NOx reduction. Now, if you look at the slider, as a matter of fact, let me zoom it before I even play it. You will notice right there that the NOx concentration 1 right there is reading 162 parts per million, while the post is reading 168. So as I'm observing this, right, I'm seeing that the NOx sensor 2 is higher than NOx sensor 1. It should be lower. You guys all know about the 87.5% that should be lower. The point I'm trying to make is that as the truck initially started the reductant or anti-tamper test, what happened was I could see like 162 at NOx sensor 1, but then it would drop to almost 40 parts per minute. And then as I'm running it for 5-10 minutes, guess what's happening? There you can see that the NOx actually went up. So that kind of tells you what's going on. So with ammonia slip, we had stated previously that when you got ammonia slip, that means that ammonia could be released that's actually trapped in the NOx sensor. I mean, NOx sensor, excuse me, the NOx catalyst. And in turn, what's going to happen is it's going to fool NOx sensor 2 into thinking there's more NOx than actually is. So what happened here, as I'm trying to show you here, is the fact that the reason why this truck would not get out of D rate is the fact that it saw clearly that the NOx sensor 2 was way up there. But eventually what would happen as you continue running the test, you're going to notice there as the numbers are playing there that, again, you see 174, then you saw 160. Look how fast it drops. I mean, she's dropping fast, 146, 143. But then at the same time, it would actually all of a sudden climb, royally climb, okay? So that's indicative of that we got something going on in the NOx catalyst that it actually has permeated ammonia slip. So some of that is being released, which means in this case, you can try get it cleaned. Haven't had success with cleaning. It has to be replaced at that point that we saw here on this certain subject. So I guess what I'm trying to say is one of the other things you got to keep in mind is the fact that, what is the integrity of that NOx catalyst? So unfortunately, on a Ford product like the 6.7, you can't do this. You would have to keep it at a steady speed and rate and actually verify that the injector is working, and you can monitor that at that point, which means that you would have to be on the road. Problem is that you got to set it up on your screen to see that. And this is frustrating. I get it. It's frustrating for the simple fact that you have to be on the road to monitor this. I get it. That's why a RAM, you can run the test and then you could get out of it and see what's going on with the, again, NOx catalyst. And there are, by the way, there are schedules where you can now see that. You can see NOx data with a RAM. But on the GM, it's a blessing because you can see what's going on with the parts per million as DEF fluid is being injected. So I guess what I'm trying to say, especially with GMs, you want to monitor those NOx parts per millions when you're running that reductant fluid quality or the anti-tamper. So that's a quick note on ammonia slip because we've seen that happen. We see a climb, a jump in NOx, and that's usually indicative, again, that we have some permeated ammonia slip that's in that catalyst. So the last point here is NOx sensor integrity, right? We already mentioned about testing the NOx sensors, and what did you find about the NOx sensors? You found out that these NOx sensors obviously can be skewed. So it kind of puts us in a bad position. And believe me, I'm open for answers, because when I talk to the European guys, they're running a 5-gas or a NOx sensor, a gas analyzer. But again, it's only confirming the performance of NOx sensor 2. But again, if you got a NOx sensor 1 or even a 3, because the 3-liter has 3 NOx sensors. So therefore, it's kind of a pain in the butt to figure what's going on with that. Now, on a traditional system, okay, if you got a NOx sensor 1, NOx sensor 2, some guys have been just, in other words, we've taken off or just separated the DEF fluid injector, run the truck at a steady load like 2000 RPM, and observe NOx sensor 1 and NOx sensor 2, because again, you should have no or little nothing going on with, with those NOx sensors, because there is no conversion taking place. But there you go again, you have the catalyst there. So therefore that catalyst is also converting NOx. So there's another problem there. So it kind of steps back to some shops that I've worked with, and these shops have clearly stated that, dude, I'm just keeping the NOx sensors in stock, because this is what we've had to do due to the issue. So yeah, some of them have had to have NOx sensors in stock. So there you go. So as I show you some of the rest of the stuff that we just talked about, this P011, but please note, again, I just had a shop contact me about a 3-liter Duramax. Tony, we need training on these 3-liter Duramaxes. Can you look at this? For those of you that haven't kept up to date here, this 3-liter from 2020, 2021 model years, again, this is getting older now. You will notice we have an oxidation catalyst at just before number 2 right there. And then we have our SCR on F. So this is the SCR catalyst, and the diesel particulate filter as one unit. So in this case, on this truck that I'm dealing with, this P11cc that I'm trying to help them out, this actually has, again, a SCR on F, which means that the NOx reducing catalyst and the particulate filter are one unit. And then you continue having more conversion after number 6 right there. Okay. Now, I'm not going to give the 3-liter class. That's something you guys can watch later on from my previous classes. But what I'm trying to say is, okay, this has over 200,000 miles on it. What is the efficiency of this SCR on F? What is the efficiency of the other catalyst that's after number 6 at the tail end of this after treatment system? So,
Tony.
Yes, sir.
Not seeing that video come up a little bit, and I haven't seen your screen change in a little bit, so maybe just double check that.
Let me hold on. Let me go ahead and go back to that. Sorry. It should be playing it. Not bad. I'm glad you said something. There you go. You see it now? You should see a scan data there.
Yes, I think we are now.
Okay, so that was showing that right now. So there you go. So yeah, that's what we're looking at there. Thank you, Matthew. And in this case, there you can see again the catalyst. Again, this big fat one right here where my cursor's at, that is your SCR on F. So therefore, it kind of begs the question again, what's going on with that SCR on F? So when you now combine it with soot, in other words, you got soot, which is a DPF, and you got the SCR catalyst, it kind of begs the question, how well or how efficient is that catalyst, So obviously after number 6, like I mentioned already, you can see there that we have another NOx reducing catalyst along with an oxidizing catalyst as well. So thank you, Matthew, for pointing that out. So again, guys, what I'm just trying to get across here is you got to do your homework and due diligence to figure out all these operational different stuff. But where we're at a bind is 2 things. What it comes down to is A, NOx sensor integrity, and 2 is the catalyst integrity when it comes to NOx conversion. Given the fact you checked everything else in the truck, in other words, no intake leaks, no sensor leaks, no excess blow-by, no nothing. So you can imagine how excess blow-by with this engine would affect that SCR on F, not to mention your NOx conversion. So with that said, let me go back a few slides now. With that said, with this truck that I have the P11cc, I just showed you the P11cc. Please note that, again, the issue that we're now having is he's getting a P0421, which is cat efficiency. So in this case, that's addressing that first oxidation catalyst before that SCR on F. So we got an efficiency issue there. But the issue that just came up is it's saying that it's not, the code is for and not enough EGTs. In other words, we're not hot enough yet. Even though we ran a regeneration, it's at 1200 degrees, it's still saying that it's not hot enough. So we definitely got a sensor issue or a program issue. We got something going on there to address that. So it's driving this poor shop crazy, and the customer's not happy. So, you know, they already put a fat bill on that one. So there you go. All right, so we're taking some input. Any input on what I just talked about? Matthew, you were one of them.
So Tony, I'll just share a few things we've had. I guess two different of those 3 liters in here over the past little bit, over the past maybe two or so years, and both of those trucks, one of them we had DPFR we had to replace. I even had spent some extensive time verifying that was the case with it. Even got another test truck in the area that was not having a problem, looking at the very things you're talking about in terms of the NOx 1, 2, and 3. And we were having that very problem. And that particular first truck we ended up taking to the dealer because it was still under warranty. The customer wanted us to do some work. And anyway, they put a DPFR on about 50, 60,000 miles. And recently we had another one come from a used car auction that they'd ran through the auction and had some issues come back in. And it, as you mentioned, intake leak. We found an intake leak on it, and but it looked like it also likely had a DPFR failure, and that truck was just over 100,000 miles. So begs my question, I guess, is GM having problems with these DPFR trucks, or at least some of the early models? Was some of the thing that I guess I've beginning to wonder on some of those model of trucks.
I believe they do. And for the simple fact, like I stated earlier, is you now have soot in play there with the catalyst. And in this case, is that going to affect the channels of that conversion taking place, you know? So I believe it will affect dramatically the performance of, in other words, to do the NOx conversion, you know, especially if this vehicle has excessive, you know, blow by and other, you know, soot accumulating issues. So, but yeah. So yeah, I mean, I agree with you there, Matthew. So yeah. So tell us about your Ford there, Mr. Matthew.
So it's kind of a long story, but it has some similar parallels to what you're talking about. The bottom line is right now where we're at with it after everything we've done, we have a situation where we're unable to clear the P207F and P202E as an Edward. And that Edward code is kind of performance code for the DEF injector performance. But I've been discussing that with some other colleagues a little bit. And we've been doing what you talked about, Tony, doing the road test. I've had this thing up and down the road per the driving cycle that Ford is telling us to do. You get up to between 55 and 60 mile an hour for at least 30 minutes, get your EGT temps in where they belong, and basically let the ECM go through and verify that NOx reduction is taking place like it should. And looking at the OBD2 data, that looks overall good, but we cannot fully get the codes to completely go away. And the problem is my customer who is a Ford dealer, but it's their used car division. In order to sell this vehicle, the codes have to be going or it won't pass their emissions test that they want done. So I've got to get rid of these some way for them to be able to run it through their emissions test, even though it appears right now they're kind of inactive, but they will not clear. I've done this test multiple times. Going back to original, we went through and verified DEF quality. This vehicle had a DEF heater problem and DEF pump issue, fresh DEF, verified quality spray, and the injector was replaced too. There was a question at one point, is there a catalyst problem? But that has also been swapped. And we're still not getting this, particularly the 202 code, to disappear. 202E, I should say. That PO 207.
By the way, the 202E, what's the definition of it? I know I've seen it, I've done it, but I can't remember. Sorry.
It has to do with the basically the DEF injector performance. And we did put a new DEF injector in it and have verified its flow and spray and At first, we thought maybe it was even a circuit fault, indicating that there was electrical problem to it, but that's not really what it's after. I can get you the exact details if you wish. But
later, yeah. We'll discuss
So
it
it-
further on the forum, but you're right. So yeah, what Matthew's talking about, and not to interrupt you, Matthew, sorry, is the fact that, we have, again, DEF fluid injector, we have, and you swap the NOx catalyst, right? You probably put another after treatment system in it from another vehicle, I take it.
yes, that's right. And it also, I should say,
That's-
it
that's
has
situation
new
that got,
new NOx sensors as well, new Ford NOx sensors in it too, because in the swap, the old sensors didn't make the swap over. So we're not dealing with a new sensor problem that I know of anyway.
So then that brings us back to fueling. Is fueling the issue, because NOx is created by high heat in the combustion chamber. But the thing is, where people will argue that is, okay, even though you're generating some NOx coming out of the engine, shouldn't the DEF fluid with the ammonia conversion actually reduce the NOx as well? And the answer is yes, unless there is excess NOx coming out. Because the question begs that's something I've been researching is, if you have excess NOx, I mean more than normal because of fueling or engine issues causing high NOx, how much can that after treatment, in other words, the DEF fluid ammonia conversion, reduce? So that's what we're trying to, so therefore need to look at. That's why, and that number is being challenged. That's why I said, okay, what is too much NOx coming out of NOx sensor one? We were somewhere around 300 parts per million, which is working great for the older trucks, but I'm running some struggles with the newer trucks. So therefore, what is too much NOx coming out of the engine too? So let's not forget that too as well. So yeah, we're at a quandary, but I'm actually creating a data sheet on this, to help people out, and also put it on my online courses about, hey, what can we do? What are the things we need to get across to try to address these issues, like such as what Matthew's going, such as what I'm going with that 11cc code. What is this computer looking for? So therefore, again, we talked about the after treatment, but let's not forget about your fueling as well. That can create high NOx as well. So that's another guy. Now I got news for you. On this P11cc 3-liter Duramax, they put injectors in it. So that addressed the NOx sensor one issue we had, but now we've still got the 11cc issue. So yeah, it's a little bit of a challenge, and I get it, because this is where people probably say at this point, you know what, let's just delete it, because it's a challenge. And when you have done like what Matthew has done and swapped so many parts or did so many parts, I mean, you're all this money into this thinking this is the fix, and it's not fixing it. It's kind of begging you, okay, now what's going on with the hardware and the software? So here's the bottom line. I've had shops that I've worked at where we just went ahead and had to reflash it and it didn't fix it? Yep. It came to the point that we had to replace the ECM, PCM. I said, I'm taking a big gamble here, but I can't justify that. But we're at this point now. I mean, we've done everything, and what have we not confirmed? And turns out that we did have a hardware problem. But that's a tough call, man. That is a tough call. And believe me, like other guys that do diagnostics, you don't want to make an uninformed decision. You want to make an informed decision, but we're at the point of the process of elimination where we said, okay, we did this, we did that, we did this and that. We still got a NOx issue. Then, my hands are up in the air. So it's got to be a hardware problem at this point, So yeah. So with that said, I mean, obviously we're only here for so much time, but we're just trying to let you know things that you need to do some homework on. And don't worry, I will be putting out another webinar. What I cover this, you guys are welcome to contact me and on what I can try to do. But this has been a big issue. Why? Because like I said at the beginning, we're getting a lot of trucks now with these issues that have high mileage, and like Matthew has some of these auction trucks, some of these used car truck market parts, and who knows what's going on with them, kind of begs the question that when a truck is deleted and you put it back to stock, the question begs, is every file now stock, or is there still some of delete programs still in that software, So that's why some of us would wish that we could have a complete wipeout of the program and may ensure that we got to have a complete stock program back in the vehicle, So that's another thing to keep in mind as well. So some of you that are going to criticize, I've heard this, guys, we've seen this. And I'm just telling you, this is something that does happen. So it's not a BS line that I'm giving you at this point.
Tony, in validation of that, what you just said, we went through a LML here recently that we had to kind of unravel the combination of it was the customer ran it down to it was basically in 4 mile an hour D rate, and they ran it long enough. There was multiple problems they were dealing with. They just left the check engine light on until they couldn't go. Without getting into all the details, the bottom line was I eventually tried reflashing the ECM, and that didn't really change anything. I thought, well, maybe one way I could get it out is I put a tune in temporarily, and basically would hopefully wipe the ECM, and then take the tune back out of it, and then see if that would go out of D rate because of what we were dealing with. Long story short is, as you were kind of saying, even though we returned it back to stock with the programmer, the tech noticed that not all the things were functioning right. And as soon as I then went back and factory reflashed it, I went back to D rate again till we actually were able to get the actual problem solved. And in that particular case, there was a NOx sensor, a EGR bypass valve, and other things were replaced previous. But the long story short was we had to do a regen first and then do the anti-tamper test to finally get it out of to the D rate. So kind of validating what you're saying, you've got to get the factory programming in, is what I'm trying to say, even if it's been returned to so-called stock.
Yeah. So there you go. So yeah, we'll continue talking about this, Matthew, definitely to help you out with that Ford. We'll put our heads together, see what we can find out. I know you've been in contact with other people too as well. But again, guys, this is the reality of what we're dealing with. And no, delete's not the answer, because there are areas all over the United States that cannot be deleting, or it's just a plumber's truck, a work truck, a landscaper's truck, and they have to be running with stock, components. So therefore can't delete. Sorry. So if you're one of those guys that's watching me right now on the YouTube channel and say, hey, just delete it. No, because delete has not always fixed issues. And it always been an issue as well. So it frustrates me, because we have had trucks, like Matthew just said, that were deleted, and we have to put them back to stock. And now the fun begins there, because again, remnants of the old delete program might be there. So we'll give it more structure as we move along here, but definitely it's a cause of concern, especially those that, they're struggling with this, because as you know, shops are getting shorthanded and they're struggling with these issues. And, we got to stay up to speed with this stuff to try to deal with what we're dealing with. And is it getting expensive? And Matthew, since you're on already, is it expensive? It's very expensive, isn't it? So therefore, that's what we see going on there.
Yes, it definitely is, Tony. I was on mute, so it for definitely sure is.
Yeah, it definitely is a big thing. So there you go. And Lee, just a quick question: did you deal with a lot of this stuff, Lee? Thought I'd chime you in there, because I know you've been out of it, but I still know you get calls.
Still, yeah. Tony, right now, and I'd like you or Matt's recommendation. I got a 401 code that I'm battling on a 2011 Super Duty, so first year. But what started all this is the amount of soot that's throughout this whole engine, because that flap gate on the front of the EGR cooler broke. So when it was cold, it was loading up the EGR cooler, the EGR valve, the cat, everything. And I would love to hear either one of your recommendation on how to get all this carbon out of all this everywhere.
You're
We
talking
had,
about the
we had to take out the MAF sensor and dig out the little hole so it would sense it, because it was full of carbon.
This wouldn't have to be a high idle truck, would it?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, Tony.
You know what? It started off from us taking that big, that upper intake off,
Right.
where the intake throttle valve is at, and it's just coated with carbon, taking that
Yep.
out, and then
That's it.
looking inside, and it had that lower intake needed to be come off. It had to come off too. So yeah, we've literally taken out that upper and lower intakes off on those 6.7s.
Yeah, where do you stop? I mean, and then what do you clean it with? Engine clean doesn't, some of it won't touch it. You almost got to hit it with a scraper.
Yeah, we're using a aqueous solution that's worked very well, but you soak it in there, we soak it overnight and it works well. And some guys, like when I was in Oregon, he was just chipping away at the carbon because we needed to get that truck put back together as soon as possible.
Okay.
So yeah, it's not easy, but I forget the name of it, but I use an aqueous one you can soak overnight that does break up to sit very well. I'll get you that info here when I get off here.
What do you do with the EGR cooler, Tony? Send it to a machine shop, have it soaked?
Yeah, we soak it also in that too as well. That's worked very well that I did in my 6-7 presentation. So like I said, I'll get you that info. Definitely get you that info. So
I was going to find somebody who had a hotsy and get after it, see what happens.
But yeah, definitely have to clean them up and get them. Yeah, I'm sorry, but it's the customer has to clean it up, definitely. So that's
Tony,
why. Go ahead.
So Tony, in that, where are you deciding where you have to get aggressive? Because we know that almost any of these trucks have certain amount of carbon in them, but there's some point you got to say, hey, we got to take this apart farther. I know it's maybe a judgment call, but where are you saying that at? Are you just where it's just thickly coated, or how are you determining that?
At first, that to me, that what we've done is at first, like I said earlier, that upper intake that has the throttle plate included in it.
Right.
By taking that, at that point, we can see what's going on the rest. Then we'll tell the customer, we'll show them the carbon. They're like, they're amazed how bad it is and said, this might take hours. So we tell them, but we don't guarantee that that's going to do the fix, but it is part of the fix. Because the question begs what's going on with the rest of the intake, so.
Matt, because that 401 code was EGR flow. And when we looked at the EGR cooler, it looked as bad as the cat. Just a layer of a 1/4 inch of crud. And hell yes, it ain't got flow. Nothing can get through here. So
which is a common code.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So this is an early model. That's why the later models have that different design of EGR cooler. The tubular design. So but yeah, that's a common thing. So I guess the answer is, and it ain't just the 6-7. I mean, I can't tell you how many LMLs, L5Ps also getting full of carbon too as well. So this is a plaguing problem. So yeah, we cleaned a lot of intakes in the past. So, and it's staying so nicely on your hands. There you go. But anyways, yes, sir. So I'm glad you're seeing similar issues too as well. But there you go.
We get it all cleaned out, Tony. Who knows what else is going to show up after that?
Exactly, and that's the nation. So now put this truck, as a truck with in excess of who knows how many miles, 200, 300,000 miles. Now it gets even more interesting.
Tony, has there been any people that you've gone across that have been real successful with some of these cleaning products if they're not in a regular maintenance mode? You talk about BG in the past. I know BG has a cleaning system. I know there's some other companies that have them too. And when you were here back in 2022 or 2023, one of those 2 years, I was in contact with a company that was selling a device called Carbon Clean that I've talked to Michael Oliveris down in Williams Diesel in Florida since, and he's not real 100% clear on that Carbon Clean, but the concept was using hydrogen to kind of clean off the inside of the engine without all the disassembly. My question is, are you seeing anything out there that's working legitimately, or is it's just simply just get down in there and get dirty?
Yeah, because it's so thick. I mean, if you've taken apart, that carbon is just on there. I mean, it is on there. So no, once it reaches a certain point. But the thing is, that's why when I was running the shop, we were doing preventive. We were running intake cleans like the BG one you just mentioned, but that was preventing carbon accumulation. So, but it wasn't, if it was already too much coated with carbon, forget it. You have to take it apart, clean it. So I haven't seen something that you just spray and boom, it just comes loose. No, it's just so permeated and thick. No, I've not seen that. So sorry, haven't seen that. So there you go. So yeah, but we'll continue talking about that 6-7. I saw that you put it up on the forums. And those of you that don't know or are watching the recording, please note we do have dieseltg.com. where you can post issues and read about some of the issues like Matthew has posted and other people have posted, and become a free member. It's all free. It's dieseltg.com that actually is up there too as well, that you can post that. So there you go. All right. Any other things going on? Let's see. We got a few guys logged in here. So Carl made it. Hi, Carl. Why don't you say hello once in a while, Carl? Carl's nice to see you there. But
hello.
How you been, Carl?
I've been good. I was just typing a message. I'll just ask it then, or throw it out there. You mentioned I didn't get to hear everything. My wife called, so I had to, kind of break away for a minute.
Okay.
But early on, you was talking about the smoke testing and all that there with the issues that you're having. We just got one here with the heavy duty side on it. Just wondering if anybody had been using it there, and if you got one, if you had success with it. I ain't got to use ours yet.
You're talking about the smoke machine?
Yes, smoke machine to go in and check for leakages on the intake side and things like that.
Well, I use an older Blue Point that I bought from Snap-on.
Yeah, we got ours is Snap-on.
Probably overpaid for, but that has been a good unit to me. And the reason why is I can take it up to 25 PSI.
Okay.
And it's got the dye in it. So
ours, we got it from Snap-on too. I know Redline makes one, and I've seen that.
Bosch does too, yeah.
Yeah, and I was just wondering how successful y'all had with that on the intake side of things.
The answer I can give you is 199 plus 1,000%.
Cool.
What I mean by that is been very good to find leaks. Even though sometimes we've smoked a few intakes, it's hard to find where it came from, but we know we had an intake leak.
Yeah.
So it hasn't been always easy to find the leak, but we knew we had a leak.
Okay,
so
cool.
It definitely is. I'll put it to you this way. A good friend of mine up in Montana, he attended my classes years ago, and he actually went ahead and said, every truck that we're going to come in, no matter what, we're going to smoke test it just to see what's going on. When I saw him months later, he said that an average of about 80% of the trucks that he smoke tested, even though they didn't come in for an issue about intakes, were actually leaking. So it kind of told you how these trucks were not efficient because they were leaking boost.
Yeah, and well, on the intercooler side of things, those clamps don't always get really, really tight, and you, like I say, you lose boost.
Yeah, so therefore that's a biggie. Let me tell you, that smoke machine, especially what we're talking about, people, those who don't know, we're talking about high pressure smoke machines, high pressure smoke machines for diesels. And in this case, you can pressure that smoke up to over 20 PSI.
And I will validate that too, Tony. I'll go right along with you. That is a very valuable tool. You mentioned earlier on this P11CC code on this truck. I don't know what exactly your problem is. Obviously, I'm not involved with it, but we did this one LM2 we had here in the diagnosis. Very clearly, the intake runner was leaking, and I told the customer, said, "Hey, that's got to be fixed before we can go to the next level," which looked like it was at DPFR yet too. But we probably would not have found it had we not had the high pressure smoke machine.
I don't see how a shop could survive without it nowadays, especially with the delicacy of the NOx being affected by your fueling and your map pressures. That'll definitely cause it to be skewed. So definitely it's a must-have tool nowadays, it seems like. I know some guys are using soapy water still and pressurizing it, but nowadays, most of the newer smoke machines, this is what ticks me off, by the way. Most of the newer smoke machines, they're under $1,000 now. So
yeah. Okay, I was just being sure because, like I said, I've been fighting for about 7 years to get one, and finally got it last semester. So we're starting, and I'm teaching emissions this semester. So we're getting ready to use it, show my students how to do it.
Yeah, definitely push that with the students. That's a must-have tool nowadays, especially with these NOx issues. Yeah, great to hear from you, Carl. There you go.
Yeah, it's good seeing you and hear from you.
All right, nice to as well. So there you go. Any other discussions? We got about 10 minutes left here. Any other discussions? Any other things going on? We're taking questions. I know that Matthew talked about his stuff. Anything going on? Jim, are you still there? Would you like to say something about what's going on with training? Since Jim and I, we've worked at different similar companies doing contract work. Anything you feel, Mr. Wilson, going on, you like to tell these guys or tell the people that are watching the recording? Jim, are you there? Or did he go on a phone call? One thing I can tell you is, guys, we have the Diesel Master course coming on late February. I did one earlier in November. So therefore we actually went to a shop here in Las Vegas and we diagnosed with the guys over at Sin City Diesel, helped them with a truck. That was a good experience. But one thing that I continue to harp about, so you're going to see me now offer it again, the electrical classes, the L1, the L2. I've done it at Matthew's place. And in this case, what we're talking about is, I was dealing with another shop again, and the same thing is you don't know how to do voltage drop testing, the electrical testing. You got a shorted signal return. We've had other issues going on with electrical issues. I guess I'll just leave it broad. In other words, electrical. So one thing that we're going to be pushing again is electrical. So again, if you're not electrical, because as you're finding out too, is we're seeing also network issues. And if you've been watching a lot of YouTube videos and a lot of stuff going on out there on social media, we're seeing issues with, again, networks. That's another thing I've been dealing a lot with. So I would say my top two items that I get phone calls about is obviously NOx and NOx conversion. And number two is, network issues, which relates to electrical. So again, this continues to be a thing going on. Shops have all the questions to ask me to help them out. But the problem is a lot of them don't want to invest in training. Well, we don't have time. Nobody has time. But the problem is when you got, like one shop owner I just talked to, when you got $7,000 in a truck and you haven't yet fixed it, the customer's going to be a little bit peeved off because all he knows is you can't turn off that check engine light. So we got to do our homework. We got to know what we're doing. So, and those of you who've never seen me before, please note, I get the fun trucks. I mean, I get the ones that they've been to shop A, shop B, shop C, and now it's on my hands and I got to first fix their problems and then get to the original problem. So, it's a little hard, but I like the challenge. However, though, please note that we will be offering the EL1, EL2, the electrical 2-day classes, 2 and 2, and also the Diesel Master course, which is the complete Power Stroke, Duramax, and RAM all in 1 week. It's a heavy loaded week, but we're going to be doing it here where I reside here in Las Vegas. We'll be doing that class in February. So if you're looking to dedicate time, invest in your training, guys. I'm not trying to act like a salesman, but it's needed out there when it comes to the training we're supposed to have. So,
Tony?
Yes, sir, Mr. Wilson.
Well, all I will do is agree with you that on the electrical, it's needed heavy more than ever, especially for some of these guys who start to get ready to do some electrical vehicles, which not a big push, but again, the electronics and electrical is something always going to be needed. I agree with the high pressure smoke machine. That's one of the greatest tools you have after working on some Class 8 trucks I've had over the past. And the last thing is networking. Hey guys, you ought to go to a class on networking if at all possible, because there are some things about it that don't make sense till you actually see it happen. Is that a good statement to use? Communication issues, what the patterns look like on the network causing an issue. It's kind of interesting to watch them.
You heard it from Mr. Wilson. And again, those of you that haven't been following Jim, stay on here with me, is the fact that us in the diesel arena, we're way behind the automotive guys. Because the automotive guys are big time into scopes. Correct me if I'm wrong, Jim. And they're scoping everything. So the problem is, I've been to many shops, they got their scopes and they're just sitting there collecting dust because they're too afraid of it or they don't know how to use it. So in this case, the scope will enhance, again, your diagnostic capabilities of what they're doing. What they're doing with picoscopes, oh my God, it's just amazing. So, and if you've been watching about the crankshaft, camshaft correlation codes on the 6.7s where the gear is actually shifting on the crank gear, you'll know what I'm talking about there. So yeah, it's a very essential tool, the scope, to actually help diagnose those electrical gremlins that can arise there. So definitely something to keep in mind there. Thank you, Mr. Wilson. Yeah.
One thing on the scopes, you don't have to have a pico. Whatever scope you get, just learn to use it, practice with it, and you're going to always be better than no scope at all.
Yeah. So get the training. And one thing that Jim and I can say, Jim and I go to similar shows sometimes. And in this case, you always see the same people, and these people are really sharp, It's because they dedicate and invest time in themselves for training, So I don't care if you don't get training through me or not. What I'm trying to say is there's so much training out there that you could be getting to get better, So a lot of guys are really cheap about investing in themselves for their training, because now is the time, as you know, we're shorthanded. This is the time where you could be making money. So that there's a lot of good techs making some good money nowadays. So keep that in mind. But you got to invest, got to get training. I myself, I got to stay up to date. So, and Jim does too. We got to stay up to date. So there you go. We do. So there you go. All right. 5 minutes left, 4 minutes actually. Any other points, any questions, anything you'd like to ask, please ask. Jim, by the way, I forgot, you've been on my online program, right?
Yep.
I got the online program too, guys, for Duramax, Power Stroke, and all that. And Matthew, you got to get back on it. I don't know if
I do.
but you're still in the system. So if you need to log in, email me so I can remember to do it, please. And because I have updated and I continue to update it, so therefore it's getting fatter and fatter. That files that I have up there, the complete diesel master course is online, guys. So therefore I continue to update it, putting about NOx issues, putting about common rail issues, turbo issues. We're trying to teach you, but obviously, please note it's at a fee because it costs money to host it and make it. So therefore, we're trying to keep the cost down, but still, we got to make some money too. So understand that.
You got to get on it too.
Yeah. So definitely get on it. And like I said, any questions? All know my website is powertraintraining.com, and that's where I have my information there. So we got a few techs already inquiring. As a matter of fact, I saw 2 phone calls I missed. But in this case, we do have a lot of information here. Obviously, definitely, ask questions. My phone number, my email will all be up there. So therefore, you're welcome to contact me. So any last minute issues?
Tony, two things here real quick. You commented earlier in the what you were talking about this thing of NOx checking, and you mentioned about some European shops or whatever are using some 5-gas analyzer or whatever. Is there any more we're learning about that? I continue to feel like what if I could probably be more effective if I could somehow have a device where like that monitoring inlet and outlet kind of duplicating what the ECM is seeing, verifying that my sensors and what's happening in the catalyst would help to shortcut me here a little bit.
Yeah, we all feel that. Yeah.
I'd like to find something out there like that. We could put a pre and post and yet let the sensor kind of build a Y or whatever you want to say so that the sensor could still read and yet be able to monitor what's being solved, that maybe could shortcut down the whether the cat is or isn't failing.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
I realize that we also still need to do our homework in that we got to make sure the engine's healthy, the NOx injector's doing its job, all that type of thing. But it just feels like we could really cut down some of our diag time if we could have a device or devices like that to run down the road with.
That's what we're working on right now. I'm talking to as many people, professionals that I know in the trade right now, to try to get more, because we're not the only ones going through this. This discussion is going on everywhere.
Yeah.
So we're trying to, get it down to what we can do to narrow it down. So unfortunately, we're at the mercy of like I said already, the sensor quality, the program, and other issues that we're trying to figure out there. So and last but not least, let's not forget something, because I fixed a few trucks this past year with this. You know what the whole problem was? Was source power. Computers will act stupid if they're not getting adequate power, So that was another one that we addressed too, as well. So, but again, we'll get some information, Matthew. You and I guess you and I can share information and see what we come up with, because I'm trying to create a good task sheet of addressing these issues on these 3 different makes, So yeah, I know what you're talking about. I'm on it. I'm trying. I'm getting lots of phone calls. So, well, any other last minute? We're about 1 minute left. I know some of you have to go back to work. I appreciate you. And those watching the recording, hey, you should try to join us live once in a while. But I'll be trying to I am headed this weekend to ADS HDAW in Dallas. I'm going to Dallas, Texas for that. I'm speaking there for a class. And then at the end of the month, I'll be at ASA over in Colorado and for their ASA summit, teaching 2 sessions there too as well. So trying to stay busy. Plus, like I said, we got a diesel master course coming up. I already talked to Alliant Power about setting up some dates too. We got a few things we're working on to get training. But remember, we have the diesel master course electrical. So if you have any questions, go to my website or you can call me. Again, those of you that have my number, but it's on my YouTube channel thing too as well. So with that, I think I'm done. I got some things to do now. So Matthew, pleasure seeing you. James, Lee, thank you all for your input. Carl, God bless you. Until next time, guys. See you again. God bless.
Thanks,
Tony.
Tony.
Thanks, Tony.
Thanks, Tony.
Thank you.